There you go. Okay. So we are going to begin class by relaxing as we always do. And again, I apologize, kind of echoey up here without the microphone, but hopefully I'll try to be distinct in my speech, but not too loud. We're going to start finding a relaxing space. So whatever that might mean for you. Perhaps it's resting on your back, your side, your belly. Sometimes you can have those legs up a wall if that feels good. And maybe a relaxing space for you is seated. That's a possibility. And as you're finding that space for yourself, maybe a few of those settling breaths, nice deep inhales and longer exhales. Those exhales settling into the weight of the body where you're connected to the floor. And once those breaths feel complete, we just invite the body to breathe itself. Nice, easy breath. And pausing here just to notice what might be present in that physical body. And if it's tough to notice physical body, maybe we go right to noticing the breath. So we were just having a discussion, and perhaps that discussion is bouncing around in your brain. And if that's the case, sometimes going straight to the breath, noticing the breath, and particularly noticing the rhythm of the breath, the number of beats it takes you to breathe in, the number of beats it takes you to breathe out, is one of the more accessible and quickly accessible ways to tune into that physical body. So either noticing sensation if it's arising, or perhaps witnessing the rhythm of your breath. Noticing that sensation with curiosity. What kinds of questions would you ask a friend if they were trying to describe these sensations? And witnessing that breath. So taking a moment to notice the path of the breath. So as you're breathing in, where do you feel that inhale travel to? Often it expresses itself as expansion. So maybe we feel it in the nose and throat as temperature, and perhaps we feel the chest or belly begin to expand. And as you exhale, where do you experience the exhale? Perhaps it's in the release or the deflating of that expansion, or the temperature as the exhale exits the throat, the nose. Breathing in and witnessing the path. Breathing out, noticing if there's ease or release that comes with the exhale. Taking a moment to move away from a breath and physical sensation to just notice where your body is connected to the floor, that sense of weight. Sometimes it's a sense of heaviness or even expansiveness as it's resting on the floor. Where are you connected through the body, to the floor, to the mat, to the earth? That noticing of connection anytime. Doesn't have to be in this hour, anytime we're out in the world. Where are we actually connected to the earth? Can be very grounding, meaning it gets us out of our head and gets us back into our body. And so today, perhaps as you're going through your practice, as we're in our poses, you might bring awareness back to where you're connected. What does that connection feel like? What spaces are really connected and maybe heavy or have weight, and what spaces might feel less connected or lighter? We build these skills while we're in our practice so we can take them out into the world. When you're ready, we're going to bring a little bit of movement to the body. So we've been here for a few minutes. If it feels like good to stretch, if you'd rather kind of get a little bit smaller and knees into chest or child's pose, if you're resting on your belly, a few moments here to wiggle around. And we're going to meet in seated. We're going to have a couple of choices. We're going to open up the fronts of the thighs. So as you're shifting, if you happen to have blocks handy and you know that you want to use them, grab those blocks. If you have blocks and blankets to make a bolster, you may want to grab those too. So we're going into dragons and we're going to release the front of those thighs. I know it's not a favorite of a lot of us, so I want to give you an option. If you're not going into dragon, which looks like a low lunge, and I'll demonstrate that here in just a second, we're going to go into deer. And for your deer pose, if you're making a bolster, we put those blocks inside a blanket, or if we've got our pillow, we can use that on the right side. Knees drop to the right, and that left leg is going to walk back while we twist to the right and either stay on palms, elbows, or lower down to a space that makes sense. Now, if you're doing dragons, we're going to have our right knee forward. So we're in tabletop. We slide that right knee forward. That left leg can walk back just a bit. Feel free to use blocks, especially if you really experience this in that front crease of the thigh. Or maybe you're planting hands to frame the feet or to draw inside. Now, just 3 minutes in our dragon pose or our deer pose. And this idea that we are releasing a lot of connective tissue of the front of the left thigh. And I talk a lot about those quads, and this is a great one to release those quads. But you might also be experiencing it in that right knee that's forward in the back of the thigh. Or as I mentioned, the experience or sensation of this pose may present most specifically in the front crease of that thigh and that hard compression, or where those two bones meet and squeeze some tissue in between. We're going to have some firing of the shoulders in this. Now, if you're in your deer pose, hopefully we're able to relax in a way that maybe the shoulders don't feel so fired up. But here, we're going to fire up that upper body just a bit. We're doing our best to think about everything being very heavy, as released as possible. Maybe using that longer exhale. So we may have observed the rhythm of our inhale. We might know the number of beats it takes us to breathe in. We might also need to find that. So you can do 2 or do 3 or 4 breaths actually to count the number of beats it takes you to breathe in. And then extend your exhale by 1 or 2 extra beats. This is great stuff for our low back. Of course, great stuff for our knee health. We're opening a really tight area, so we may find in these first few poses that we're releasing a lot of heat. So you may cool down fairly quickly. That includes our deer pose, because that's a twist and a release of the front of the thigh. Noticing if it's possible on the exhale to release just a little bit more of the gripping. I'm really gripping this, and I think I'm not until I do a longer exhale and notice how much I release in the front of that left thigh. And it might be possible to release in these 3 minutes. It might be difficult depending on how tight that area is. When you're ready, we're either going to push off of that floor or we're going to shift weight to that back knee. Take some time, release what makes sense. For those of you who are going into dragon on the other side, this time it's just that left, it's the left leg that comes forward. If you're doing your deer pose, we're going to just switch the knees over to the left side, switch your props, over to the left side, and we walk this right leg back. We twist to the left and lower down if that's appropriate. If you're doing that full dragon, left foot forward, right leg back. Trying to maybe, even walk that right leg back. Letting weight do the rest of the work here. If we're twisting and you don't feel a whole lot of sensation in the front of that right thigh, meaning if you're in deer, you might walk that right thigh back a little bit. I'm guessing we're feeling lots of sensation if we're in dragon, but if you're not feeling a lot of sensation, you can always try to walk that right knee back a little bit further. And just a reminder, you can frame the foot with the hands, they can come inside. We might be on blocks. I tend to use blocks on this one just so I don't have quite as much compression in the front of the thigh. Maybe we're using that longer exhale to tolerate this pose. Reminding ourselves if it's painful, we need to come out. That's a message from the body that something needs to change. But only you know this sort of edge between discomfort that might lead to release or discomfort that might lead to pain. So I spend a lot of time paying attention in this particular pose. Noticing as we settled into that stillness, if sensation here is different or similar to the other side. Notice those similarities or differences so we can make adjustments in the physical pose. But it might also indicate if we ever are doing the home version of this, we want to hold a side longer than the other. We might find release on one side quicker than the other. Just taking a moment to notice shoulders, see if we can perhaps release shoulders, neck or jaw here. knowing that we're also getting this element of a stretch through that psoas. That's usually what helps release that low back, that tug and shortening and tightening of that muscle. Here we're trying to lengthen it. We're going to release, so we're going to press back to that knee. If you are in your deer pose, press through the palms first. Come out of that twist. We're going to come to a seated position for our dragonfly pose. So dragonfly has a few little components here, and I am going to request one of two poses today. So either straight legs comfortably out, feet relaxed, folding forward, or bent knees, soles of the feet on, rounding forward. So we do want to have an element of our back release, which is why I'm being a little bit specific about this. So wherever you're choosing to be, if you want to support yourself with pillows, blankets, or blocks, meaning that head, you're always welcome to use those. This inner thigh and hamstring release is where we're headed. And this one we are going to hold for our full 5 minutes. When you're finding that space to rest, it is okay to leave your head in a dead hang as long as you don't have neck issues. If you've got neck challenges, we want to make sure we're protecting that neck and supporting that head. This inner thigh release, back of the thigh release, perhaps. If the knees are bent, it's going to be more focused on the release of the low, sort of the sacral area and low back area, as well as that middle back area, mid-thoracic. Those forward folds are calming to the central nervous system. We hope. It's a nice way to invite more ease into the body by kind of squeezing those organs, sending a message through that vagus nerve that we would like to relax. That vagus nerve, cranial nerve that roots out into all the organs. I shouldn't say all, almost all the organs. So when we compress those organs, whether we're folding forward, whether we have pressure or deep pressure on the belly, it does send some signals to the brain that we need to be relaxing or at least more restful. As we're entering some of these longer holds and maybe less challenging, I always like to chat through the dragons. Those can be quite challenging. But as we're coming into some of these longer holds that perhaps could be more relaxing, you're going to hear me get quieter. A couple of reasons. That way I don't have to chat and distract you. Also in this echoey loft today without microphone. As we're resting in that silence, maybe practicing some of those skills, noticing breath, noticing rhythm of breath, tuning into sensation that arises and noticing with curiosity. We can also be very methodical. So sometimes we don't have a lot of sensation that's arising in our awareness. So maybe we check in at spaces. And it's okay too, if you are here to relax, to not have to think about a thing, to let the mind wander. When you're ready, we're going to begin to slowly restack that spine. Just take an opportunity to wiggle around should you like. We're going to be moving into a back bend. If you have a blanket or a pillow, actually, either one of those, if you want to place it on your mat and go right underneath, really from rib cage up to that heart center, it's a nice support for this back bend. We're going to come onto our bellies, and we've got all kinds of choices as boys. Feet for sure are wide, no matter where we're choosing to go. We might have elbows right underneath underarms, supporting the head or resting the chin on the fists. We might be a little further out in more of a crocodile, where we've got our forearms stacked and resting your head, especially if this back bend feels pretty intense. So we're moving from this forward fold and really compression in the front of the thighs to releasing that compression. So we go from squeezing that tissue to opening it up, and that's where we're headed here. And of course, we're going to get the great benefit of a back bend. And when you're settling in, asking yourself, how far apart do you want your feet? Mine tend to go pretty far based on the hip structure. You might have them a little bit closer. We're trying to make sure we have release through the buns and through that low back. We're back to deep pressure on the belly, forward folding, deep pressure, and now back. Deep pressure on the belly, creating some of that relaxation response in the body. We're nourishing things for this low back. Our dragon's nourishing, or our twist in deer. That forward fold really to release inner thighs and hamstrings. So that tug that we get on that pelvis, and usually that's tugging it in a way that kind of tucks the tailbone and creates some of that low back tension. And now we're releasing the front side of the pelvis, the belly, and of course the front crease of those thighs to release that tug on that low back. A moment to check in with breath. Maybe we're noticing breath. Perhaps we're using a longer exhale. Maybe a space to check in with what is connected to the earth, to the floor. What are the sensations of the weight in the body where it is connected to the floor? From here, we're going to be shifting into our version of child's pose. And if child's pose is okay for you, you might wiggle around a little bit or move right directly into child's pose as a nice counterbalance. If child's pose is a little bit tricky, we're going to come onto our backs and draw our knees into our chest. I apologize. My nose is going crazy right now, so I'm trying not to sniff and trying not to do too much Kleenex. So child's pose, or resting on your back, drawing your knees into chest. Now, if you're in child's pose, your head doesn't touch, feel free to stack your fists and rest your head or use a block or blanket underneath that forehead. We do want to bring the floor to us if we can't get to the floor, so we can get that full release through the spine. It's okay in our child's pose, especially if you're in that forward fold. Feel like the compression of the thighs on your rib cage is fairly intense. It makes it difficult to breathe. Give yourself some space between the knees. Same as it goes with here, knees drawing into chest, that we get a little bit of space for that rib cage to expand. Now, what's nice about this pressure as well is that it really makes the body send the breath into different spaces. So if you happen to be really an upper chest breather or even a belly breather, that breath is going to travel a little more to the outside rib cage, those side rib cage areas, and maybe even back space of the heart and low back rib cage. We hope this feels fairly calming to the central nervous system. Forward fold again, deep pressure on the belly, or if you're resting on your back, very similar response when you have deep pressure on the back side of the body. It inspires that relaxation response. Maybe a space to notice breath, to notice your connection to the earth, to the floor, to the mat, to notice sensation as it arises. When you're ready, we're going to release into either maybe laying out on your belly, a little bit of wiggling. You can bring in full child's pose. And resting on your back, you might stretch those legs long. That feels good here. We're going to meet resting on our backs. And this is a good spot here if you've got a blanket or a pillow that you want to place underneath the head. We're going to rest on our backs, and we're going to have lots of choices here. So we have time for just one more pose that is two-sided. If twisting is a favorite, you can do stacked knees, you can do twisted roots. I'm going to throw this one out today too. If you want to do, and I'm going to demonstrate going on my left side, if you want to do a twist and kick those legs long, that's a nice low back release. So you would drop knees over to the right and extend those legs. Maybe you're feeling like you need more of a hip, side body, and shoulder release. So you could do banana asana. That's where the legs are long. We've got our arms overhead, and we're walking heels off to the right, arms off to the right, while our hips and our shoulder blades stay on. So banana asana is a possibility, also going to the right. And I'm going to throw this one in too. You would have, it's not one-sided, but you could go into your happy baby for your first pose, especially if you're working with low back stuff today. That's a great release for your psoas. And then your second pose would be your star pose, where everything is expanded, arms are overhead, letter V, feet wide. So any form of twist you want to do, including legs straight out, or as if you were going to try to reach your toes to your fingertips if your arms are out to a T. Banana asana, where heels are walking off to the right, arms overhead, and just a reminder, arms overhead, sometimes a block underneath that forearm or elbow can be helpful. Or happy baby to star pose. So 5 minutes on each side, or 5 minutes in that happy baby star pose. If there's something else that occurs to you, you guys have all been longtime practitioners, maybe you're wishing we would have done something. We've got 2 more 5-minute poses to do. Feel free to do a little freestyle in here. Do what makes sense for your body. We know all of these poses are going to target different areas of the body. But in general, our twist and banana asana to really open up that torso. There may be some added hip release as well, especially outside of the hip. If you're in happy baby, it's the psoas, the ease in the psoas. And I find you'll see me here in happy baby, especially after a week of teaching, this is one of my favorite poses to do. So I get that low back release. Really tired muscles by, by Thursday. Also an added inner thigh and hamstring release. Maybe you're in a favorite, and I always invite you to explore why it might be a favorite. What parts of the body does it help you release? What are the sensations in the pose that might make it a favorite of yours? And that's just, again, uncovering some layers and understanding the body a little bit better. Perhaps a moment to check in with breath or to check in with sensation, noticing what parts of that body are connected in connection itself. When you're ready, we'll release the pose, drawing those knees back to center, bringing those arms down by your side if you've been in Asana. Taking a moment to pause in the middle of your mat. Maybe notice one side as compared to the other. How are they feeling? And we'll move into the other side, or if you're joining me in Happy Baby, I'm now going to go into my star pose. Star pose, if you like, arms overhead. I'm a little fired up in shoulders today, so you're going to see me a little more in T position. You're a visual learner, that always gets a little confusing when I say something that look different. If you're going over to that left side, dropping those knees over, maybe kicking legs long, or if you're in Asana, the heels walk off to the left, arms overhead, maybe supported with something underneath that forearm. Settling into the second side or your second pose. If you're in that second side of the pose, you may take a moment just to notice how sensation feels on this side as compared to the other. Perhaps we're checking in with breath or our body's connection to the floor. We'll begin to bring those knees back through center or walk your body back through center. And perhaps releasing, if you've been in star pose, drawing those knees towards the chest. We are going to find our way into final relaxation. I'm going to get a little bit closer, so maybe it's a little less echoey, a little more relaxing. So the idea here is if we cool down, grab something that's going to keep you warm, maybe a blanket, sweatshirt, socks. Finding any space that feels relaxing to you. So it doesn't have to look like a yoga pose. We can rest on belly, side, back, legs up the wall. Maybe you feel most relaxed in seated. We wanted to save a little space today. We're going into relaxation right at 5 after, and we'll be there for about 4 minutes, but save also a little space for a little bit of pranayama, so breath work at the end. As you're settling in, maybe give yourself that nice deep inhale and that longer exhale, that exhale settling into the weight of the body where you're connected to the floor. And once those breaths feel complete, just inviting yourself to breathe in the way the body chooses. Body breathing itself, no effort to breath. We invite those longer pauses between thoughts. And perhaps that leads to a quieting of the chatter of the mind. And we let go of all of the doing of our hour's practice, of our morning. And we invite ourselves to just simply be. To be resting here in a sense of ease, maybe even a sense of well-being. And to be resting here in silence for the next few minutes. Beginning to bring awareness back to the sound of my voice, back to the space that you're resting in. Inviting that deeper inhale and that longer exhale. We begin to reawaken the body, wiggling fingers and toes, circling wrists and ankles. It might feel good to stretch arms overhead. It might feel good to draw knees into chest. In your own way, in your own time, we're going to begin to make our way into a seated position that feels comfortable to you. And as you find that comfortable space, we're going to do a bit of pranayama. As we know, that is breath work, drawing prana into the body, but also moving prana throughout the body. And today, we're going to do really complements Tuesday's practice, the chakras. And if you weren't present for that, no worries. But we are going to do a 3-part breath, but we're really thinking of 3 chakras. And the idea is we begin at that root chakra, so the pelvic floor. When we draw a breath in, we're drawing with our mind's eye that breath in through the root chakra. As we exhale, we're going to exhale it out the heart chakra. We take our breath back in through the heart chakra and exhale it out through the crown chakra, very top of the head. We inhale through the crown chakra, exhale, heart, inhale, heart, exhale, pelvic floor or root chakra. So essentially inhale traveling up, exhale traveling down, very much within sort of the prana or the way prana moves through the body. But we're adding these kind of 3 stops in our mind. So we'll do first couple of together, and then I'm going to send you on your way to do it because sometimes I breathe too fast or too slow for you. So take a full exhale here. Your next inhale with our mind's eye, we're drawing that prana energy or breath up through the root chakra, pelvic floor. We exhale it out through the heart chakra. We inhale it back through the heart chakra. Exhale it out through the top of the head, the crown chakra. Inhale, crown chakra. Exhale, heart chakra. Inhale, heart chakra. Exhale, root chakra. Inhale, root chakra. Exhale out the heart chakra. Inhale, heart. Exhale, crown chakra, top of the head. Inhale, crown chakra. Exhale, heart. Inhale, heart. Exhale, root chakra, pelvic floor. Let's do 3 more breaths. Your own pacing, beginning by inhaling through root chakra. Finishing off that last part of that third breath. And then just pausing to notice, how did that breath feel? What might be present in the body in this moment? How are we feeling in the physical, the mental, and the emotional bodies? And if this gesture feels okay for you, we're going to place our palms together, resting right in front of our heart. May all be well. May all have peace. And may we all be filled with compassion and loving kindness. The light in me is honored and grateful for the light in each of you. I bow to you. Namaste.